This Storm Watch at the Weather Channel is being brought to you by American Power Conversion. We'll begin this Storm Watch with a look at the tropics. There's a lot to talk about. Two very active systems, one very close to the Texas coastline as well. With that top story, here's Dr. Steve Lyons with our tropical update. Steve?
Well, you're right, Paul. It's very close to the Texas coast, and those in South Texas should be preparing for hurricane-force winds over the next 24 hours. Now, let me give you the latest statistics on Hurricane Bret down here. 23.8 north, 95 west. That's 210 miles southeast of Brownsville, Texas, which is roughly right in here. Continues to move to the north-northwest at 8 miles per hour. Pressure's 976 millibars, and we expect it to continue this way and then take a little hook back toward the west. So right now, the landfall is expected to be in Mexico up here, but nevertheless, there's going to be a lot of impact in the Texas coast, and we could be off, and it could slide up into the Brownsville area. So we have hurricane warnings yet from Baffin Bay, Texas, down to La Pesca, Mexico, and then watches down south of that to Tuxpan, Mexico. Now that means hurricane-force winds are likely within the next 24 hours, and here's the latest visible satellite imagery of the circulation. Keeping in mind Brownsville's about here. You see a well-defined eye circulation. Continues to show better organization. That means that the system is strengthening through time, and the forecast is for a continued drift to the north-northwest and then west-northwest through time after tomorrow, and a potential landfall sometime late Saturday night, late Sunday night into Monday. Now right now the winds are bordering on Category 2 at 95 miles per hour, and the wind damage associated with that is typically minimal, starting to get into the moderate stage depending on the construction type. But keep in mind also the wave potential down here in South Texas is very high. So a hurricane like this could produce very large waves and very damaging coastal erosion along the beaches. Also, look at the infrared satellite imagery here, the circulation center right there. A lot of very cold cloud tops indicating that there is a lot of rainfall potential there as well. System continues to move only 8 miles per hour. That means the rain potential is very high for the Texas coast and also northern Mexico, so watch out for potential for flooding. Now you can see the overall circulation down here is still a ways away, but you don't have all that much time, especially with all the heavy shower activity, to prepare for the potential for hurricane force winds or a landfall there. So South Texas, you should be preparing. And also in Central Texas, keep in mind, wave action is going to come up your way. You're going to have very large waves, including up here into Galveston. Now you surfers in Galveston, be careful because this system is very close. It's too close for comfort. It's going to be very stormy there. It's not going to be the type of surf you want to surf. So don't venture out into the ocean at this time. Now the rainfall potential you can see here for a system moving at about 8 miles per hour is up there at 10 to 15 inch range, which is very large and could produce some flooding. So right now we expect the waves and rainfall and flooding to be the major impact to the system. Now elsewhere in the Caribbean, it's relatively quiet other than some shower activity in the northwestern Caribbean that we're monitoring. We don't see any development right now. Now we also have a tropical storm, that's Tropical Storm Cindy out here. It's a long way, it's about 4 days from the Windward Islands, but it's 65 miles per hour and forecast to become a hurricane moving due west at 12 miles per hour. And you can see the position there at 14 north. Any island over here in the windward south of 14, you're probably in pretty good shape because it's rare that systems turn to the south, although it's not impossible. And when we look at the circulation here in infrared satellite imagery, we see it's still struggling a little bit. This area out in here is marginal at best for intensification, but we expect that it will continue to intensify, but we have plenty of time to watch it. Well, that's it for the tropics this hour. Now let's get back to the studio.
All right, thanks a lot, Steve. As this Storm Watch, sponsored by American Power Conversion, continues, we can look at some wet weather in the northeast. Also across the plains, some showers continue to come in. Around New York City, we've seen a little bit of rain. We also continue to see some coming in toward Boston as well. Those are big stories, the rain around the country. We also need to talk about more of the tropics in greater detail with Dr. Steve Lyons. That's on the way next after your local forecast. Please stay tuned.
I'm Kristen Dodd in South Padre Island, Texas, where we are closely watching the movement of Hurricane Bret. I'll have a live report coming up on Weather Center.
This program was sponsored by American Power Conversion, legendary reliability.
Power problems affect you. They can attack your PC up to 120 times per month and will strike without warning. APC's legendary reliability combines world-class service.
Hurricane Bret is moving closer and closer to the Texas Gulf Coast, and with more on that, here is our hurricane expert, Dr. Steve Lyons.
Thank you, Carl, and we do have the latest information from the National Hurricane Center. Let me show you what that is, at least as of 4 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Position was 24.1 north, 95.1 west, about 195 miles southeast of Brownsville, which is roughly there. Winds up to 105 miles per hour, so it's a healthy Category 2 hurricane moving north-northwest at 8. And notice the pressure that hurricane hunters are down there. Just found a pressure of 965 millibars. And we look at the watches and warnings, we can see that the warnings still extend, hurricane warnings that is, extend from Baffin Bay down to La Pesca, Mexico, with the hurricane watches up to Port Aransas. Now we also have some tropical storm warnings and watches. The tropical storm warnings extend from Baffin Bay to Port Aransas. And we also have some tropical storm warnings that extend farther south into Mexico as well. And here's the latest visible satellite imagery, and you can see a very well-defined eye circulation. The system seems to be becoming better defined over the last 3 or 4 hours. These are short-term trends that happen, but the overall trend we expect for slow development into a major hurricane, a Category 3 hurricane before landfall. Now currently you can see it's moving generally to the north or north-northwest. We expect the upper level ridge to build into the north and push it very sharply off to the west, so it comes in the general vicinity of South Texas, very South Texas, or North Mexico. Although right now we still do not see that westward turn, so all of you up in here under the hurricane watch should be preparing for the potential for hurricane force winds within the next 36 hours or so. Now we see some rain bands coming into Brownsville. One passed a few hours ago. Here comes another one, although this one is not all that strong. It'll push onto the coast. Rainfall has been just a little less than an inch over the last 6 hours or so. But if you look at the overall picture of the infrared imagery, the cold cloud tops, a very well defined what we call central dense overcast, a very heavy precipitation. You can see the eye there on the infrared. It's temporarily not all that well defined. That's just a very weak cirrus canopy hiding that very strong hurricane there. So we need to be paying very close attention to anybody in the Texas coastal region over the next 24 hours. Now elsewhere across the tropics, you see the Gulf of Mexico. That's the big interest there. I don't have to worry about anything else in the Gulf. And into the Caribbean we go. We have some showers up in the northwestern portion of the Caribbean. Nothing developing at this time. The big story elsewhere in the Atlantic Basin tonight is Tropical Storm Cindy. As of 5 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time, was about 450 miles west of Cape Verde Islands, and the winds were up to 70 miles per hour, so it's forecast to become a hurricane over the next 12 to 24 hours. Continues to push to the west at 12 miles per hour, and it's still a long way from the Windward Islands. You're about 4 days away at the earliest, so we have plenty of time to monitor it, but basically the track is forecast to be to the west-northwest with slow intensification through time to hurricane force. And here's a picture of it right now, not anywhere near as impressive as our hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico tonight, and it has some hostile environment here to go through before it gets anywhere near the Windward Islands. Out in the eastern Pacific, we have Tropical Depression Fernanda. Winds are down to 35 miles per hour, moving to the west-southwest at 9. That's drifting in the low-level flow, and this system is on its dying legs now and likely to dissipate over the next 12 hours. Another circulation trying to spin up here off the Mexican coast. The good news about that is it's generally moving to the west, away from the coast of Mexico. Well, that's it for the tropics this hour. We'll have another tropical update at 50 past the hour. Now back to the studio with Carl.
Dr. Steve Lyons, thanks very much for that report. As we take you across the lower 48 here, we are seeing some scattered showers into the northeast. Some good news there. You do need that rain. That continues to lift out towards the northeast. So you see a little bit of rain here in western part of Massachusetts and parts of New Hampshire and Vermont. And it looks like that's going to wind up as we head into tonight. We're seeing more scattered showers and thunder showers into Florida here, the southern part of the state. And we're seeing more action into Fort Myers and Naples, so it looks like it's going to be fairly stormy through much of Florida as we head on through the afternoon. This storm watch, by the way, brought to you by APC, and we will have more details on very dangerous Hurricane Bret and where it may be headed coming up in just a few minutes on Weather Center.
Hurricane Bret targets southern Texas, and we're watching its every move. An expert update plus your weekend conditions coming up on Weather Center after your local forecast.
This program was sponsored by American Power Conversion, legendary reliability.
Power problems affect you. They can attack your PC up to 120 times per month and will strike without warning. APC's legendary reliability combines world-class surge suppression with instant battery backup to bring uninterruptible power to your desktop. To find out more about protecting your PC, visit www.iwantapc.com. APC, starting at $99, it's power protection that...
Thanks for joining us for this edition of Storm Watch, sponsored by Home Depot. A dangerous hurricane is heading toward the Gulf Coast. For the very latest on Hurricane Bret, we now join our Dr. Steve Lyons. Steve?
Well, thanks, Sharon. And we are looking at a hurricane that continues to develop tonight over very warm tropical water. And it's a dangerous hurricane, to say the least. The latest information from the hurricane as of 6 p.m. Central Daylight Time, 120-mile-per-hour winds. That's a Category 3, and heading toward Category 4 if that trend continues. Latest satellite imagery indicates that it's getting very close to Category 4 intensity. We may see the Hurricane Center up to Category 4 later tonight if that trend continues. Moving north at 14, and it so far has not had any shift to the west. So those people in Central and North Texas, you need to be monitoring very carefully. Don't do anything yet, but monitor very carefully. Pressure has been dropping down to 955 millibars as per the latest hurricane reconnaissance. Now here's our latest projected path, and this is basically Sunday evening, anywhere from Central to South Texas, and it looks like northern Mexico is getting closer and closer to being off the hook. However, the Hurricane Center does still think it's going to hook more toward the west here with time. It may not hook quite as fast as they originally thought it, but as of now, the hurricane advisories, hurricane warnings up from La Pesca, Mexico up to Baffin Bay, Texas, and then watches up to Port Aransas. And I can imagine that the next advisory, we may see warnings and watches extended up the coast, at least to maybe Freeport or south of Freeport. We'll have to wait and see what the Hurricane Center says. But you need to be watching carefully. This is a very dangerous hurricane indeed. Now, we also have a tropical storm warning up right now from Baffin Bay to Port Aransas. And keep in mind, a warning means those winds are expected within 24 hours. A watch means they're possible within 36. So remember those watch and warning criteria. Now here's the latest on the visible satellite imagery, and I wanted to show you this. Look at the very last image here, that little ring right around the center of there's the center right there, and that little ring there that you see is the eye wall. Very tall, cold cloud tops, and that's where the winds are the strongest. That's the most dangerous part of the hurricane, and that will continue to be the most dangerous part. Now, as we look at the infrared satellite imagery, it's a massive area of thunder shower activity. It's got the classic 9 signature now. You see the number 9 there, and that's associated with a very strong hurricane and very heavy rainfall potential there. High surf will affect all the way from North Texas down toward Brownsville. Now, as we go across the Atlantic, nothing brewing in the Caribbean tonight, but as we go across the Atlantic, we have 2 areas. We have a tropical storm Cindy that's still a few days out, and we'll update you on that later tonight. Right now, it's not showing any signs of immediate strengthening. Well, now let's go back to the studio.
Dr. Lyons, thank you very much. And now for our Spanish-speaking audience, we go to Dr. Jose Diaz-Arias.
Muchísimas gracias, Sharon. Vamos a continuar en nuestra información especial en español sobre el huracán Bret. Como ustedes pueden apreciar aquí, se encuentra muy bien organizado, un ojo bien claro completamente. Sus vientos máximos lo han categorizado ya de 3 de la escala Saffir-Simpson. Es muy interesante que ustedes conozcan que toda la costa norte, la parte norte de Tamaulipas y también la parte desde Brownsville hasta Houston, hasta Galveston, tienen condiciones de muchas marejadas que que pueden inclusive llegar a ser de 4 o 5 metros de altura y peligrosas para todo tipo de navegación. Las lluvias son intensas en estos lugares y a medida que se acerca el huracán a tierra serán aún mucho más intensas. Vamos a regresar con Sharon en el estudio.
Okay, thank you very much. And let's go ahead and show you again that projected path, and you'll be able to see here that we are closely watching much of the Texas coast and including around the Houston area. While you do not necessarily need to take any action right now, we really encourage you to keep abreast of the very latest with Hurricane Bret. All right, that's it. We'll be back. We're going to show you the very latest on what's happening across the rest of the nation as well as Hurricane Bret.
Texas braces for Hurricane Bret. Find out if it's strengthening or weakening and where it could make landfall. Expert coverage you can rely on ahead on Weather Center.
We do have the latest position fixes.
This program was sponsored by Home Depot, where low prices are just the beginning.
Once upon a time, there was a gentleman came in from the islands, and he had this huge list of things to buy. Wow. Let's start enlightening. They had sent him over here to buy all the supplies they needed for the whole year. Next, we're going to lumber, plumbing, hardware. He says, you know, they gave me 4 days to do this, and I got it all done in one stop at Home Depot.
Pick up water, dirt, and even nails with the
It is about 10 minutes before the top of the hour. It is time for Storm Watch and your tropical update, sponsored by Honda Generators. Let's show you first with the very impressive picture here of Hurricane Bret. If you've been watching throughout the afternoon and evening, you know now that Bret is a very, very powerful hurricane. Now a Category 4 hurricane. That means if it were to make landfall, it would have the capability of producing extreme damage. So we've got a Category 4 out here, the strongest that we've seen since Opal in the Gulf of Mexico. And we continue to watch this thing generally moving on northward. Eventually, we think there may be a bit of a turn to the northwest. We are still waiting to see if that happens. In the meantime, we encourage all of you along the Texas coast to please keep an eye out for this. It's getting very late now, closing in on the 11 o'clock hour Central Time, and lots of you obviously want to retire for the evening. Understandable. Please tune back in first thing in the morning and see how things are faring. We're going to be watching for any further strengthening as we head through the overnight. We're also going to be watching for any sort of a turn to the northwest as we go through the overnight hours. We'll let you know, of course, as you tune back in throughout the overnight as we bring you live coverage and on into the early morning, what sort of changes we are finding here with our Hurricane Bret. All right, let's go ahead and show you the coordinates. These are the latest ones as of 10 o'clock Central Daylight Time. Bret is centered at 25.2 north, 95.1 west, 155 miles to the east-southeast of Brownsville, Texas. Sustained winds of 135 miles per hour. We've watched this go from a Category 2 earlier today to a 3 to a Category 4 hurricane. It is moving to the north at 10 miles per hour. It has slowed down a bit this evening, and the central pressure at 953 millibars, and that has dropped dramatically, over 20 millibars just today. All right, let's go ahead and look at the projected path. And again, a quick reminder, it's really too early to tell exactly where this is going to make landfall. And the best estimate given for a time for landfall might be Sunday night, late Sunday night into Monday morning. So happening during the overnight hours. What do you need to do to get prepared? First of all, listen closely for any evacuations that might be pending in your area. Be ready. Hopefully you've already got the hurricane disaster supply kit ready. Hopefully the car is already packed with some of the necessities that you might need if you have to leave and move further inland. And please, by all means, keep attuned to the Weather Channel. We'll keep you abreast of the latest changes with Hurricane Bret. All right, there's a look at the hurricane advisories. Hurricane watches established all the way on up toward Freeport, Texas, so just south of the Houston area. And again, hurricane watch indicating that could find these sort of conditions in the next 36 hours. It's not a lot of time to get a lot of things done, so you really need to stay on top of this and watch for any changes here as we go through time. So that's what's happening with Bret. And it really stands out here on the satellite picture. Now, something else that I want to talk about is this nasty cluster of convection. Very low surface pressures here throughout the afternoon and evening across this portion of the Atlantic, venturing toward the Windward and Leeward Islands. not so very organized, but look at that convection. This is also an area where we're going to have to watch very, very closely for any organization. Then we have another hurricane out here all the way into the eastern Atlantic. Look at this. This is days away from the islands. That's the good news, and even further away from the U.S. should it even have any impact, and that's a big if. It's about 450 miles west of the Cape Verde Islands, sustained winds of 75 miles per hour, so it's a minimal hurricane, moving west at 12, estimated central pressure at 987 millibars. Lots to watch out for here in the tropics. We'll quickly skip over to the Pacific. This is now a TD. This is Fernanda, and it is appearing to continue to weaken and not very impressive at all, especially after you look at something like Bret. This does not look very impressive on the satellite picture and not a threat to land. Bret, however, could be a threat to land, most likely will be somewhere along the Texas coast. Again, we encourage you to keep an eye out for things. If you're going to bed for the evening, tune back in first thing in the morning to get the latest.
Texas begins to feel the effects of Hurricane Bret. An expert update on its path and potential impact, plus your Sunday conditions coming up on Weather Center after your local forecast.
This program was sponsored by Honda Generators. Power when you really need it.
There are some people who prefer to be left in the dark. But if you prefer the light, you need a Honda Generator. They're easy to start, efficient, and quiet. But best of all, they're reliable.
Honda. That thing always works. Always.
Honda Generators are available at a dealer near you.
My business runs on long hours and a leave. I can't settle for those pain relievers that quit too soon. Just 2 Aleve are strong enough to work all day. I used to need 8 Tylenol to do that. There's a tool for every job.